You stand at the threshold of a labyrinth, not of stone and mortar, but of mirrors and whisper. The beginning of this descent is not a door opening, but a realization that the walls you've been leaning on are made of smoke. You have felt it, haven't you? That creeping sensation that the person across from you, the one who claimed to be your soul's reflection, is actually a predator wearing the skin of your desire. They present themselves as invincible, a monolithic entity of perfection and absolute control. Yet this grandiosity is merely the first layer of a complex, suffocating lie. The narcissist is a master of the stage, an architect of an elaborate theater where you are the only audience member and the only sacrifice. They move with a calculated grace, their body language a symphony of feigned empathy and dominant stillness. But look closer. Beneath the polished exterior, behind the unwavering gaze that seems to penetrate your very thoughts, lies a structural instability so profound that it would shatter them if it were ever truly glimpsed. They are not the gods they pretend to be. They are hollow shells, desperate for the light, because they possess none of their own. There is a single psychological weak point, one singular, jagged fracture in their porcelain mask. If you find it, the entire edifice of their power begins to groan under the weight of its own falsity. But to reach that point, you must first survive the initial onslaught. You must understand the mechanics of the golden cage, that period of love bombing where they suffocated you with a curated version of affection, only to begin the slow, agonizing process of gaslighting, where the very floor beneath your feet turned to water. Think back to those moments when your reality felt like it was fraying at the edges. How many times did you question your own sanity? How many nights did you spend trying to solve a puzzle that was designed to be unsolvable? There were 3 stages to their initial conquest, 3 distinct movements in their symphony of manipulation. Yet there is one thing they fear more than anything else. It isn't your anger. It isn't your tears. It is something far more quiet, far more devastating. As we peel back these layers of manufactured invincibility, you will begin to see the cracks. You will see how their need for your reaction is actually a confession of their own impotence. We are here to deconstruct the myth, to turn the predator into the prey, and to reclaim the power that was stolen from you in the dark. But before we can strike at the heart of the void, we must understand the precise geometry of their deception. The question remains, are you ready to see what lies behind the mirror when the reflection is finally stripped away? The true nature of their greatest fear is closer than you think, waiting in the silence of the next realization. Step into the silence that follows the shattering of the mirror. When you peer behind the silvered glass of their persona, you do not find a monster of myth, but something far more unsettling, an architectural void. To dismantle the predator, you must first understand that their entire existence is a frantic, lifelong construction project designed to hide a central, hollow core. They are not built of flesh and conviction, but of borrowed shadows and stolen light. Can you feel the cold draft emanating from that emptiness? That is the atmosphere of their soul, and it is the first secret you must master. At the foundation of this fragile structure lies the narcissistic supply, a term far too clinical for the visceral reality it represents. Think of it instead as a parasitic hunger. The narcissist is a leaking vessel, a cracked chalice that can never be filled.
They require your admiration, your fear, or even your hatred to verify their own existence. Without your reaction, they cease to be real in their own minds. They are addicted to the reflection of themselves in your eyes, because when they look inward, they see only a terrifying, formless zero. Imagine the desperation of a drowning man who must pull others under just to catch a single breath. This is their daily bread. But ask yourself, what happens to the parasite when the host becomes invisible? What becomes of the shadow when the light is extinguished? This dependency births their greatest vulnerability, the primordial terror of exposure. To the narcissist, the truth is not a virtue. It is a lethal weapon. They exist in a state of perpetual high alert, a psychological bunkers down mentality, where every honest word you speak is perceived as a direct assassination attempt on their ego.
This is why they react with narcissistic rage, a white-hot, disproportionate explosion intended to blind you before you can see the pathetic, trembling child behind the curtain. They are emotionally frozen at the age of 3 or 4, trapped in a developmental purgatory where they possess the intellect of an adult, but the impulse control and empathy of a toddler. They are playing a game of God with the emotional tools of a playground bully. To protect this fragile inner sanctum, they employ a geometry of manipulation that is as predictable as it is cruel. Consider projection. When they accuse you of the very betrayals they are committing, they are not just lying, they are literally vomiting their own internal filth onto you because their system cannot process the weight of their own shame. Then there is triangulation, the introduction of a third party to create a manufactured competition for their favor.
They turn your world into a stage where you are forced to perform for the scraps of their attention, keeping you too busy competing with others to notice the rot at the center of the director's chair. You must realize that every tactic they use is a confession of a specific fear. They project because they cannot endure themselves. They triangulate because they fear they are prisoners of their own design, locked in a labyrinth of their own making. But the blueprint is now in your hands, and the structural integrity of their deception is beginning to groan under the weight of your gaze. The question is no longer what they will do to you, but rather, what will happen when you stop feeding the machine?
The question is no longer what they will do to you, but rather, what will happen when you stop feeding the machine?
The gears are grinding, the walls are thinning, and the most dangerous part of the operation is about to begin. The moment we move from observation to the surgical application of the truth. Do you hear the sound of the first crack? It is the sound of the predator realizing the cage has changed hands. The crack you hear is not just a sound. It is the structural failure of a glass ego that has spent a lifetime pretending to be diamond. You are standing in the center of their carefully constructed theater, but for the first time, you have stopped reading the script they wrote for you. This is the surgical application of the destroyer sentence. Understand this, it is not a string of words meant to wound, for to wound them is to acknowledge their power. It is a psychological guillotine that severs their access to your emotional marrow.
We call it the Axiom of Irreversible Indifference. When you look into their eyes, those eyes that have spent years hunting for a flicker of fear or a spark of anger, and you deliver this blow, you are not fighting, you are simply ceasing to exist within their reality. Why does this strike with the force of 1,000 suns? Because the manipulator thrives on supply. They are a vacuum, and your reaction is the air they breathe. By stating a boundary that accepts their warped reality without participating in it, you leave them screaming into a void that no longer echoes. You are telling them, you may believe what you wish, but you will do so alone. But how does one articulate this without falling back into the trap of explanation? The secret lies in the coldness of the delivery, the stillness of the hands, and the absolute refusal to justify your existence.
Before we dissect the specific phrasing that will dismantle their defense mechanisms, we must acknowledge the force that sustains this dark knowledge. To our loyal followers, your presence here is the vital engine that keeps these truths from being buried in the shadow. This trinity of support, the like, the share, and the subscription, is the heartbeat of our collective resistance against the darkness. It takes only 10 seconds to ensure this light remains burning, fueling the engine that allows us to peel back the skin of the predator and reveal the hollow bone beneath. Now, consider the professional arena. When a superior or a colleague attempts to gaslight your achievements or project their failures onto you,
The destroyer sentence manifests as, I understand that is your perspective, and I am comfortable with you holding it. Notice the architecture of the sentence. You are not saying they are right. You are not saying they are wrong.
You have effectively placed them in a quarantine of their own making. In a romantic context, you will see the micro-expressions, the tightening of the jaw, the sudden dilation of the pupils, as they realize their hooks have found no purchase. They will try to escalate. They will try to bait you back into the fire with one last accusation or a desperate plea for your empathy. But if you hold the line, something terrifying begins to happen. They are forced to look inward. And what does a parasite see when it has nothing left to feast upon?
They will try to escalate. They will try to bait you back into the fire with one last accusation or a desperate plea for your empathy. But if you hold the line, something terrifying begins to happen. They are forced to look inward. And what does a parasite see when it has nothing left to feast upon? This leads us to a question that most are too afraid to ask. What happens when the predator is truly alone with their own emptiness? The destroyer sentence has opened the door, but what lies on the other side is a psychological landscape few have the stomach to witness. Are you prepared to see the mask melt away entirely, revealing the raw, shivering nothingness that lies beneath the grandiosity? The next stage of our descent is not for the faint of heart, for we are about to enter the void of the discarded self. Having gazed into the chilling void of the discarded self, where the narcissist's true nullity shivers beneath the wreckage of their shattered facade, you now understand the raw, existential threat you face. This knowledge, however, is a blade without a hilt if it remains merely theoretical. The time for observation is over. The time for a grim, unyielding counteroffensive has arrived.
We enter the Fortification Protocol. The construction of psychological walls so formidable, so utterly devoid of warmth, that the narcissist will not merely respect them, but fear to even approach their spectral shadow. This is not about setting polite limits. It is about erecting unbreachable bastions of desolation. Your boundaries will become less like fences and more like the precipice of an abyss over which they dare not lean. We are not merely protecting you. We are transforming your very presence into a landscape so barren, so utterly unyielding, that the narcissist finds no sustenance, only the chilling echo of their own hunger. You will learn to wield the silence, the void, as your most potent weapon. Consider the gray rock method, not as a passive retreat, but as an active strategic denial of oxygen. You become a dull, unremarkable stone, no shine, no sparkle, no reflection for their ravenous ego.
Every interaction, every fleeting attempt at re-engagement will be met with a response so utterly devoid of emotional resonance, so utterly flat that it drains their energy rather than replenishing it. But we elevate this. We infuse the gray rock with a silent psychological sting delivered through what we call the destroyer sentence. This is not a conversation. It is a ritualistic declaration, a pre-crafted, precise statement, perhaps a mere 10 words or even fewer, that you deliver without inflection, without eye contact that lingers, without the slightest tremor of feeling. It is a single, unyielding truth, repeated verbatim every single time they attempt to breach the wall. That no longer concerns me. I will not discuss that. My answer remains unchanged. Each utterance is a brick in your unassailable fortress, each repetition a further tightening of the noose around their insatiable need for your reaction. The psychological shift within you is critical.
You are no longer the responsive, empathic echo chamber they once exploited. You are becoming the silent, vigilant guardian of your own internal wasteland. This transition from reaction to proactive control is the crucible in which your new, unyielding self is forged. The narcissist, sensing this profound alteration, will find themselves staring into a phantom mirror, reflecting only their own futility. They will try to provoke, to charm, to rage, but their efforts will merely collide with the unfeeling surface of your fortification protocol. The lack of a gratifying response
The sheer predictability of your emotionless destroyer sentence, delivered from behind your gray rock facade, will become a terrifying certainty for them. It signals the death of their influence, the barrenness of their manipulation attempts. They will hesitate to re-engage, not out of respect, but out of a profound, primal fear of the void you have become.
They crave the emotional turbulence, the dramatic supply. What you offer is a predictable, chilling nullity. Each attempt to penetrate your defenses will feel like an expenditure of immense energy for absolutely zero return. A journey into a barren landscape where their grandiosity withers and dies. They will learn through repeated, unrewarding attempts that crossing your boundaries no longer offers the thrill of conquest, but only the cold, hard reality of their own irrelevance. This predictable, consistent unresponsiveness is a psychological drain they cannot afford. What happens when the well of manipulation runs dry, when the echo of their own voice is the only sound they hear? What does this utter starvation ultimately reveal about the true nature of their parasitic existence? This starvation reveals a terrifying truth. They never existed without your permission. The parasite is a mirror, and when you shatter the reflection, they vanish into the void of their own inadequacy. But as the echoes of their frantic attempts to reclaim your attention fade, a new, heavy silence settles in the marrow of your bones. This is the aftermath. The cold, clinical morning after the psychological war has been won. You are left standing in the ruins of who you used to be. But do not mistake these ruins for defeat. They are the raw materials for a fortress that no manipulator, no matter how skilled, will ever breach again. You must understand that the restoration of self is not a return to innocence. It is a descent into a more profound, more calculated form of wisdom. Your body language now carries the weight of 1,000 unspoken battles. Your gaze, once darting and desperate for validation, has become an obsidian lake, still, deep, and utterly unreadable. When you walk into a room, you no longer seek to be seen, you seek to observe. This is the first law of your new reign. The person who needs nothing from the room is the one who owns it.
Can you feel the shift in the air when you stop performing for their approval? That sudden drop in pressure is the gravity of your own dignity returning to its rightful orbit. But a question remains, a shadow flickering at the edge of your newfound clarity. Is this peace, or is it merely the cold stillness of a weapon that has finally found its sheath? To master the light of self-possession, you must accept that you have been permanently altered. You have stared into the abyss of another's malice and realized that the abyss was merely a reflection of your own untapped capacity for control. You did not just survive the darkness, you consumed it. You took their tactics, their calculated pauses, their strategic withdrawals, their surgical strikes on the ego, and you integrated them into a code of absolute self-sovereignty. True power does not scream, it does not demand. It exists in the space between your breaths, in the half-second before you choose to respond.
It is the realization that your dignity is not a gift given by others, but a territory you defend with the ruthlessness of a monarch protecting a dying border. The tables have not just turned, they have been incinerated. You are now the architect of the silent. You are the one who decides when the game begins and when the curtain falls. Your unresponsiveness is no longer a shield, it is a throne. As you step forward into this new era, remember that the most dangerous version of you is the one who has nothing left to prove. You have mastered the art of being the void. Yet even as you embrace this restoration, one final door remains unlocked. What lies behind the final veil of your own psyche? What happens when the hunter no longer finds joy in the hunt, but in the terrifying realization of their own omnipotence? The answer is not found in words, but in the cold, exhilarating vacuum of your next move.
The shadows are no longer your enemy. They are your garment. Wear them well. The throne is empty no longer, but who exactly is sitting upon it now? The whisper of the next revelation awaits those who dare to look deeper into the mirror. Are you ready to see what is looking back?